Okay, to explain Venom, it's a bit tricky in the comics because in the movie, like you get Venom, he's an alien well, Venom, he's the combination of Eddie Brock, a failed news reporter who blames Spider-Man for his downfall, or just a guy that began to hate Spider-Man at some point, or plus a killer, a very much parasitic alien suit that once bonded with Spider-Man, but then kind of separated from Spider-Man, and now they're pretty much an evil clone that hates Spider-Man with a Venom. Yes, that is the actual name for his origin for his name. So, but in the comics, it's a bit more complicated than that because when this when the black suit first appeared, it appeared in this event called Secret Wars. You know the pose where Spider-Man is in the black suit and just like in a weird like hand jazz pose. Yeah, that's pretty much like what I'm talking about. And more or less, during that event, Spider-Man got his suit damaged. Like to bare basics of what Secret Wars was, the first one, not the second one, was a god got bored and decided to bring in superheroes and supervillains from the Marvel Universe to just kind of entertain himself, I guess. Maybe there's a bit more of a deeper reason. It's kind of been a while since I've read it. But that's basically the gist of it. He just wanted to see these two duke it out. And, well, during that event, Spider-Man got a suit damage. He went to a machine to try and repair it, but then it just spot out this black circle thing. And then it got on his suit, and then, well, it just kind of completely covered it, and then boom, black suit. And as most, now the writers were like, apparently this is like a fan contest thing. I don't really remember. I didn't watch a video about it, but anyway, a fan contest, like this is a fan design that they kind of tweaked to be its own original thing or something. But when it became a new official suit for Spider-Man, because they just felt like they needed a change, like most fandoms, no one liked it, and I think the writers kind of expected this and were kind of apprehensive of doing it anyway. So they decided, you know what, let's just completely change it back. Like after a while, it turned out the suit was secretly an evil alien parasite that was sucking the life from Spider-Man or wanted to permanently bond with him, that was living and stuff. Like the whole it feeds on negative emotions thing came later to simplify the plot, like in the animated series. And that's why Peter got rid of it. But in the comics, he just kind of got rid of it because he was kind of, I guess, grossed out and kind of worried that, you know, an alien organism was trying to permanently bond with him. I mean, you can't really blame him when that happens. But past that, but basically he got rid of the suit with help from the Fantastic Four. See, MCU fans, it actually does help that Spider-Man is part of the cinematic universe, the Marvel Universe, and not just his own cast. People just don't understand this. But anyway, basically, like he first got rid of it with help from the Fantastic Four, who like were pretty much he's basically the fifth member. He's the fifth Fantastic Four member who isn't officially a member. I mean, he's buddies with the Human Torch. He's cool with Ben Grimm. He looks up to Reed Richards, and I don't really know his relationship with Sue, but in Marvel Rivals, she did call him part of the family, so that's as official as it gets, apparently. But anyway, but then the suit escaped from Fantastic Four and tried to rejoin with Peter, and was going to do it now by force instead of subtly doing it like he was before, like it was before. But then Peter took it to a church tower. It dispersed. Peter thought it died, but well, you know, Venom happened. So anyway, this plan was originally going to, you know, transition back to the traditional suit to please the fans. But then, while they were setting all that up, the fans actually grew to really like the suit. And then everyone's like, well, shit. Now everyone likes the suit. What do we do now? But then they thought of a big brain solution. Okay, let's just say that Black Cat made him a cloth version of the alien suit, saying, because in her, and I guess because she thought it looked hotter than his old suit. And I don't know what she's talking about. This suit is peak masculine performance. But I guess she's more into the bad boy type from just her aesthetic. But anyway, because of that, now he had a cloth version of it, and then a lot of things happened. He broke up with Black Cat, then he married MJ. They didn't even date for a while, and now they're like a newlywed couple, and they've been married for at least a little bit. And then one day, like MJ was walking home and was kind of mad that Peter was out being Spider-Man. Not like God, why does he have to be a superhero instead of paying attention to me? But more like I'm not mad that he's doing his job. I'm just saying I would like a little a little bit of a heads up, like an answering machine. But then she arrives home and she's like, and then she spots what she thinks is Peter in the, well, actually, there's like a little flash in like a previous issue where someone is like very much saying, oh yeah, I'll get Spider-Man, which is normal villain talk who wants revenge. But then, his hands slowly morphs from bare, naked hands to what appear to be the alien suit taking over. And it's like, oh, oh no, for anyone that knows. But then MJ shows up, all that stuff happened. But then she sees what she thinks is Peter in the distance, but then it becomes pretty clear that it isn't Peter from his breathing down to the fact that he grows a fucking mouth and smiles. And I have to say about this Venom design, uh, it's basically just buff evil Spider-Man, which I think a lot of people must just kind of classify him as buff evil Spider-Man. And this is the most buff evil Spider-Man that, like, just basically the Spider-Man design, but just with an evil grin, just more buff. Like, like the grin's not like this doesn't really look like Venom, like up close. It just kind of looks like, oh shit, what was that? Anyway, that was basically that was the ending of the issue, and then because pretty much Venom was attempting to get his revenge on Spider-Man and stuff, but well, MJ was there, and he just decided to scare the crap out of her, not by actually hurting her, but just kind of intimidating her, which is kind of weird. But anyway, Peter then arrives home. He's kind of worried for her, but then as soon as MJ realizes it's Peter, she immediately runs in his arm because, again, he's wearing the black suit, the cloth one. But well, she just ran to Venom, which is basically the black suit. So she's kind of terrified of that and stuff. But anyway, after that, they immediately agree. Okay, we're not staying here anymore because it's obviously not a safe place. And then they go to a hotel, and this is where Peter kind of starts to realize, okay, from MJ's description, that sounds a whole heck of a lot like the black suit. Like a whole heck of a lot. And then, MJ calls him out over to bed, and then I'm sorry, I'm just trying to refresh my memory. I have a memory of a goldfish. Anyway, so then the next morning, Peter and MJ talk about moving out of their shitty apartment into going into more of a like high class apartment because MJ, she loves Peter, but she has standards of living that she needs to keep up. So they're gonna move into this apartment. I think it's basically what like Harry and Peter's apartment was in like the first movie. It's basically like that. And so she's like, "Hey Peter, we need to be there at this time. Can you like go get your film equipment and stuff?" He's like, "Okay, let me drop by the old apartment." But he also wanted to use that as an excuse to go grab a certain thing to help him out dealing with Venom. Because well, if it's the black suit, he needs to go get that sonic gun that Mr. Fantastic had. So he gets that, and then he goes gets the camera, and then he changes into his civilian clothes after getting a message from Aunt May, which basically says, "Hey, come have dinner with us." At this time sharp. And then Peter's like, "Oh, it's good to hear from Aunt May." And then he goes out, but then he starts to feel a bit paranoid. He's like, "Huh, why do I feel like I'm being followed? But like, I shouldn't be in any danger because like the Spire Sense would notify me." And if you don't know, because Peter spent so much time with the black suit, the Spire Sense basically is mute to it. It doesn't even register that Venom is even there, or even sense it as a threat, and therefore Peter cannot like use it to detect Venom at all. But because of the fact that but he feels paranoid because Venom is actually tailing him, using his shapeshifting to appear as different people. But Peter notices that and he's like, okay, you know what? Better safe than splattered. And then he changes into Spider-Man get up and then leaves. Venom is, a bit disappointed by this, but he's like, oh, shit. I lost him. And then Peter arrives at the apartment, and then, he feels kind of intimidated because it's like, this is a big step up, like a big step up from his old apartment, which, was a dump, but it was also something he could afford. And this place is very much not something he can afford. And it tries to suggest maybe he should move into like fashion photography, which I guess is more profitable. But Peter doesn't think he'd be good at it, but then decides to cheer him up. Well, after like a a test drive, but Peter thinks, "Yeah, I feel silly doing this." Then MJ decides to give him a little bit of a show for his private collection, if you know what I mean, which boosts Peter's spirits. And then, fuck, my memory is like this is a very heavy issue. Like a very heavy issue. All right, so next we have a scene with like Aunt May and I with Aunt May where pretty much the entirety of the scene is Aunt May has been kind of distancing herself from them from being married, and MJ walks up to her. It's like, "Hey, look, we don't want you out of our lives completely because you do genuinely care, and we care about you." And that's basically the extent of that scene. I think it's continued later on because this is issue 300, and I guess that's continued in further issues. But anyway, we cut to Eddie, who is at the church that the symbiote was dispersed in, but also a bit of a later reveal later on. But then Eddie is stopped by a young cop who's like, "Of course, I've caught the guy that wants the money," but Eddie has literally zero interest in it. All he's interested in is revenge and stuff like that. But so then the fact that the cop isn't, but like, leaving him alone, he's like, "You know what? Fuck it, I'll just kill him." And they basically suffocate him to death. Then we cut to the moving time where we just see a bunch of characters who I don't even know who the hell they are. From like like Peter and MJ's friends. Because Peter doesn't have that many and MJ has a lot, and I mean I don't know how the hell she's friends with most of these people. I mean, there's literally the nerd from Robot Chicken over here. And I guess these are Peter's neighbors that are just helping him for some reason. Maybe they had a crush on him. I don't know. Hey, we at least got Harry and Flash. That's cool. Then Robbie's like, hey, Peter, have you ever considered what I was talking about? And he's like, and Peter, basically what he's talking about is Peter leaving the Bugle and photography business. And Peter's kind of apprehensive because, well, of everything. But then he notices Venom in the distance, and he's like, "Hey, Robbie, I think I need to be like, need to do something like alone." So Peter starts chasing after him and all that stuff. And I think I can remember everything now. So pretty much, Peter starts chasing after Venom, which Venom knew he was chasing him because that was his plan to lure him out by just swinging around and being a nuisance, I guess, which would draw Peter out, and then Peter starts going after him. But then Venom jumps on him as soon as they enter Eddie's apartment in the Bronx. And this is when I think Peter starts to realize that like the suit is kind of blocking his Spire Sense stuff. And then it's revealed who Venom truly is, which is Eddie Brock, who I'm pretty sure wasn't even a character till this issue. Basically, there's another storyline when Peter had the still had like after like the whole alien suit thing, where Peter like but before I think he was married to MJ because like I read that story and it's called The Death of Gene DeWolf, which is basically about this guy called the Sin Eater, who is just like a serial killer, like this like I guess like just a crazy serial killer who goes after people who sin. But Eddie got in contact with the real identity of the Sin Eater, who actually wasn't, and just was a crazy guy who just wanted the fame and attention. And when Spider-Man actually caught the Sin Eater, well, it kind of made Eddie look like an idiot. His public his company looked like an idiot, and then he was fired and forced to, basically do tabloid crap, which killed his soul. But Eddie, used the some of his funds to one pay for his living expense, but also buy a bunch of weightlifting equipment, which is why he's so jacked. I think the whole cancer thing came later. But anyway, the Venom suit, like, eventually Eddie got so depressed and angry at Spider-Man that the only thing he thought to do was was eventually just kill himself. But being a Catholic, he decided to pray one last time at the church, but so happened to be the church that Spider-Man dumped the suit at, and sensing the fact that, that Eddie hated Spider-Man, he's like, buddy, we feel the exact same way. Why don't you me join forces? We're gonna kick his ass. And Eddie's like, bet. And so they're now permanently bonded, which Spider-Man quickly realizes as soon as he uses the gun because like that scene in Incredibles where like that line from The Incredibles where Syndrome says to Mr. Incredible, "You sly dog, you got me monologuing." That's basically what this entire scene is because Pierce just silly trying to get to the gun, which he still has and brought with him. But as soon as he uses it on him, he realizes that the suit's a bit more attached to Eddie than he expected because, well, it's permanently bonded with him. So if he gets rid of the suit, it will kill Eddie, which I think is like an aspect of the symbiote that hasn't really reappeared, like past this point, I think. Although maybe not for Carnage. But anyway, as soon as Peter realizes this, he realizes, shit, I need to rethink this plan, and decides to book it. But Venom's like, oh, no, 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 buddy. You're not getting out of this one. My revenge is sweet. And then he webs Peter back up, and then just, like, Peter slams through the wall of the building, and then, like, Venom just punches him out. And so Peter wakes up inside the bell because it's about to, ring, and Venom's like, "Yes, it will splatter you, and you cannot escape." And he's in like a priest outfit for some reason. I didn't know this. Like Venom was so much of a Christian because he's talking about devils, talking about angels and shit. Just feels so weird. Like not bad, just kind of weird. But anyway, like Venom decides to leave because well, the sound will hurt him because he has the suit on him and stuff. But then Peter, before the bell starts ringing, he starts to try and like basically hold like the big dumbbell thing away, which fucks up his hand. But then he thinks, okay, if it's swinging that much, I can just hold on to it, and then I'll go and get out and escape. And bada bing, bada boom, he does, but his hand is seriously fucked up. It's a little detail, not really important to the plot. But then, Venom very quickly realizes that because, well, the time has passed and the bell hasn't run, and then all of a sudden it starts ringing, and Venom's like, ho, 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 Spider-Man, you cheated. You cheated on this game. It's time for the punishment. And Peter very quickly starts thinking, shit, I'm outgunned. Like, I can't fight this guy. He's too built. And sure, I have experience, but this guy's built. He's stronger. Like, he's basically me, but better. But then he realizes, wait, I have web cartridges while Venom has organic webs. And that's because the symbiote is literally using itself as the organic webbing. And since it used up quite a lot, the symbiote kind of is running out of juice. Like, it's overextending itself. Like, it will regenerate, but it's not going to be tip top shape. And so Spider Man's plan is basically to like knock Venom down into like falling, and then basically cutting off the webbing so that Venom will have to keep using it until it eventually runs out, and then Venom falls flat first on the pavement. Then after this, Peter is like, okay, you need to take him to the Fantastic Four because I can't hold him. And so then he very quickly calls up the apartments to basically give a message to MJ saying, hey, I'm going to be a bit late. And that I am okay. So he drops by the Fantastic Four, and I have to just say, what the fuck happened to Ben? Why does he look like the... Why does he look like Abomination plus A-Bomb? But anyway, past that, Venom is now in jail thanks to Fantastic Four before they send him to an actual prison that can hold him for long term. Then Peter arrives home, and MJ is giving him a bit of the Ice Queen treatment. And Peter's a bit confused by this, but then she explains that she's no longer comfortable around the suit because of all the experience. And Peter's like, yeah, I kind of don't jive with this suit anymore. So he takes it off, and then she's like, hey, look what I got. Which is a just a costume version of his old suit, but hey, you gotta keep the iconic stuff. So basically, what I'm saying is that this entire storyline around Venom was so that Todd McFarlane could draw the original suit. Yep. Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Anyway, that was Venom's first appearance, and it's not bad, but it's not exactly interesting either. It's just kind of meh, if anything. Like, it is cool to see, like, Venom's first storyline, but I don't know, it just feels kind of weak, if anything. Like, for one thing, this wasn't even, I don't think it even was really a build-up in the comics itself, besides, like, those two, like, like those 3 pages that featured him beforehand. And, of course, the entire suit saga. But still, it just kind of feels weird. I honestly think the best parts were like Peter and MJ stuff. Because Marvel, it helps to be more invested in the hero when he has like a happy piece of life. Anyway, that was Spider-Man 300. Time for the rest of it. Okay, so this next story was a bit Venom less. It was more of like a setup issue. Like he was very much a B plot leading into his return. And I don't think anything that happens in the A plot really affects anything. Like, I mean, I guess I can talk about the A plot. But pretty much, like, it opens up, like, Spider-Man's A plot opens up with him beating, or I guess defeating Hydro Man, who basically escapes. And then this leads into the detail that Peter and MJ, remember that condo they just moved into in the last one, Venom's first appearance? Yeah, they kind of got kicked out and now are pretty much have been forced to live with in Aunt May's share house. So, typical Parker luck. So pretty much he now needs to keep taking pictures of Spider-Man. And Aunt May's and I mean and MJ's job's not doing that well either. So pretty much he goes home and there's just like this little side plot about Nathan, like a crippled guy that I guess was a gambler. I don't really know him that well, but anyway, he tries to steal some money from Aunt May, and then Peter, has a talk about him and saying, "You're gonna hurt a lot of people if you keep doing this." And then Nathan says, "You know what? You're right, Peter," and then goes and beats up the guys that he's in debt to. In a wheelchair, mind you, but then, Peter comes in, saves him as Spider-Man, then saves him as Peter, and pretty much scares off the debt collectors because he's like, hey, I took pictures of you, so if, the district attorney's like across the street, man. Then he tells Nathan to stop gambling because that's how he got in debt and stuff, but then I guess maybe he And I guess maybe he keeps gambling because he says he wants lottery tickets at the very end after, even though he's like, yeah, I'll give it up. So it's more of a compulsion than anything. And and there's also like a weird detail with Mary Jane's cousin that I don't think will ever reappear in this collection. But like, yeah, it's pretty much the A plot. It has nothing really to do with this collection of Venom stories. It's more of just set up for the fact that, Venom is back, bitches. And in terms of design, this is definitely leaning more towards the typical Venom we see now. It's not full on monster face yet, but it's still Venom. But yeah, anyway, Venom's plot is he tricks a naive, like just started security guard with the typical I'm one of you guys passed out look, and so the guard stupidly opens up the sonic door to go, rescue his friend, even though like he can just pass through it fine. It's just Venom can't pass through it fine, and then Eddie kills him, shows some regret because Eddie, like, he doesn't like killing yet, I guess, but like, because Venom doesn't like killing. Like, well, Eddie doesn't like killing. The symbiote's a different story. But anyway, basically he then he starts to escape, and then he runs into another security guard. And he's basically like, "Hey, unlock my way out, or or you'll die." He didn't kill that guard, but then it ends with him with like like a new family as he was hitchhiking to New York, and that's pretty much it. All right, here's the actual Venom return. It opens up with Venom, trying to find a base to hide out in, because he's technically a criminal. So he runs into a homeless guy in the abandoned subway tunnels and stuff, and basically threatens him, saying, tell anyone where I live, and you'll basically suffocate to death." And, the homeless guy is terrified enough to believe that, especially with the demonstration. Anyway, then we get like a little recap on who Venom was from Venom himself. But then we get catch up on what Spider-Man's doing, and apparently J. Jonah Jameson just doesn't want Spider-Man picks anymore. I don't know why. It's not really relevant to the story, but he just doesn't want them anymore. Or maybe he just doesn't want them from this other guy named like John Korinsky or whatever. Apparently he's been giving the best Spider-Man picks, I guess. Or he's just a big kiss ass, I don't know. But now he doesn't want any Spider-Man pictures from Peter. That's pretty much it. And since that was his main source of income, you can see why Peter is trying to not get involved with this cop and bank robber, but he ends up getting involved because, well, the cop could have easily died from that. So that was a bit depressing. And then he goes to the Bugle to change out his address because, again, they got evicted from their condo. I don't know how they got evicted, but it seems like a guy had a crush on MJ, and then, being petty because she married someone, God forbid. I guess he evicted her. Like he made her like a blacklist in the model world because after Peter gets his address changed and meets Karinsky, I guess, he calls up MJ and that model shoot she had that day got canceled again. So Parker Luck has finally hit MJ and now she is now struggling. Don't worry, look, Spider-Man fans, they're both depressed. It's what you guys always wanted. Peter Parker suffering in depression. Isn't what you guys always wanted? But anyway, after that, oh yeah, I guess we also get this like slight like hint to another storyline where I guess a Betty Brant's cousin or something or sister, I don't know. His boyfriend is actually a werewolf, but that's not important right now. What's important is that Black Cat has returned from Europe, and I guess she just hasn't gotten the news that, Peter Parker has, married someone. And from what I've known about Peter Parker and MJ's marriage, uh, it kind of makes sense why she doesn't know because, like, legitimately, like the marriage was super rushed. So like they had to quickly break up Peter and Black Cat. So legitimately she had no idea, and then she left, and so legitimately she had no idea that he even married someone. But she shows up at the condo that's now evicted, and guess who she runs into? Venom, because he's coincidentally also looking for Peter. And then he proceeds to beat the living shit out of Black Cat. Like, like definitely has a broken nose and stuff. But well, but the thing she's more worried about is the fact that Venom said he was married. And that's just super heartbreaking for her because she's now declared that Peter, like Peter and her were just meant to be together. So I guess this is pre her being cool with the MJ and Peter marriage thing. But anyway, um, uh, while this is happening, like MJ saying goodbye to like the bellhop or like the front man. I don't know what they're called in the hotel in the condos or whatever. But anyway, but then she notices Venom and she's like, "Oh no." And then Peter comes back home and Aunt May tells him to go check on MJ because she looked really scared and stuff. But then Peter goes in, he tries to cheer her up, but then MJ quickly cuts that shit out and goes, "Peter, he's back." And Peter, he has a kind of calm reaction. He basically calls up the government. It's like, dude, what the fuck? Why wasn't I alerted of this? Like, do you realize this guy is coming after me? He's not coming after anyone else. He's not coming to wreck the city. He's coming after me specifically. Why wasn't I alerted of this? And the government basically went, call us back later. And Peter's like, are you fucking serious right now? And they put him on hold. And so now he's like, okay, before he finds us, I need to go out and find him. So he and so he goes out and he swings around for a while because he's using Venom's previous plan of, tricking him and luring him out to get him out in the open that he used to lure out Spider-Man. But let's just say Peter just doesn't find anything. He's like, you know what, it's getting late. I need to go home and go rest. So he goes out to get his web pouch, but then Venom's like, hey buddy, where you going? The party's just getting started. And then he's like, Peter's like, dude, how the you were just waiting for me here? And he's like, no, I've been following you for hours, Bucko, because there's a little known thing about Venom that a lot of people don't really know is that Peter wore that suit for so long that his Spider Sense just no longer views the Venom as a threat. So he's basically invisible to Spider-Man's Spider Sense. It doesn't really get portrayed in the media that much, but yeah. But anyway, Venom quickly starts making mincemeat out of Spider-Man, and like Peter tries to use like clever tricks, but Venom quickly outdoes him, and then he dumps an entire like gallon of like blood and guts on Spider-Man, like pig blood and guts, because this is like a meat factory. But anyway, this snaps Spider-Man. He's like, and then he proceeds to drop an entire like meat packing machine on him, on Venom, and he's like, okay, you know what? I need to get the fuck out of here because I cannot fight this guy one on one. And he even kind of comments on like, dang, I was never that violent with anyone before. But little did he know, he left his web pouch there that just so happened to have his new address, aka Aunt May's boarding house. So, that's gonna be super fun for him to deal with next, like the next one, in the next issue. In terms of Venom art, by the way, it's definitely a stark improvement. He's actually starting to look more like Venom. Actual sharp teeth for once. Anyway, next issue. Okay, so here Venom knows where Peter lives, and he very much the next day uses that knowledge to just fuck with Peter. You see, this day he's trying to act like everything's normal. He's trying to take out his Aunt May to go shopping. Then guess who shows up at the door saying, hey, what's up, buddy? We need to talk. And, Peter tries to resist at first, but Aunt May, being at this point pretty naive to Peter's escapades, and also not sensing danger from obviously sketchy people, uh, very much is like, Peter, go hang out with your friend. Even though Peter has never once mentioned a guy called Eddie Brock as his friend, she believes it. And so Eddie and Peter pretty much start talking, and Peter's like, dude, how did you find me? He's like, you kind of left behind your address and your clothes in that web pouch, buddy. And Peter's like, damn it. He's like, okay, so what do you want? And he's like, so basically, Peter then asks, hey, why didn't you like try and reveal me as, Spider-Man? And he's like, you think I want every other villain coming after you? No, I want you to myself, buddy. I want to pretty much just I just want to, just beat the crap out of you myself. I don't need every single villain coming at you. No, 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 no. I want you. for just me. I think I just said that like 500 times, but anyway. So they make a deal to go to this like beach like resort or whatever in Mongkok or whatever. So Peter agrees, but he's like, "Okay, I got my ass kicked last time, and so I'm gonna go get some help." So he goes to the Fantastic Four, and I just have to say, like, genuinely, what the hell happened to Ben? Why does he look like that? He looks so weird. Like, I know he's Rocky, but he's not like jagged rocks. But anyway, after that, but anyway, Ben agrees to come in and help out Peter with Venom because the Fantastic Four are pretty much the only people that are well aware that Peter is in like actual danger right now. So he agrees, saying, "Call us whenever you need us." But then then Peter goes home and then sees Eddie helping Aunt May with the laundry, and he's like, "Dude, what the hell? This is between you and me." Because Venom doesn't, and also Venom doesn't want to hurt innocents because, well, he only hates Spider-Man, Lethal Protector and all that. Which is one of the things that makes him a bit more unique than, say, Green Goblin and Doc Ock, who don't really care about hurting innocents, especially Green Goblin. Where Venom, like, legitimately only wants to kill Spider-Man. He doesn't want to, well, Eddie Brock Venom doesn't want to kill innocents. AKA, like, hurt innocents. Unless it's, like, someone close to Peter, I guess. But anyway. Pretty much, like, Peter takes him to the side after seeing Aunt May and him doing laundry. And then Peter's like, "Dude, you said this was between us. Why are you here?" And Eddie's like, "Dude, you think I wasn't following you to make sure you were to see what you're up to?" And Peter's like, "Shit, I completely keep forgetting that he does. I don't. My spider sense doesn't sense him, so I didn't notice him." Because the thing is that, like, the reason why Peter is such like a good superhero in like battle and stuff is mainly because of his spider sense. Like, because spider sense is just that OP. Like, it helps sense danger. It helps. It's basically like a radar system around his body, so he just knows if someone's following him. So he didn't realize Venom was following him because the symbiote was too bonded to him, so his spider sense just kind of became numb to the symbiote's danger levels. And more or less, Venom's like, "Yeah, we're gonna fight tomorrow, like mano a mano. Like, you're not bringing the Fantastic Four to like five 5v1 me. Nah, we're doing it 1v1." And then he leaves, and Peter's like, "Shit, he's got me there." So he real quick decides to go have a talk with MJ, who is going through some old albums, and then he explains to her what's going on, and, well, MJ's like, "Dude, like, go get help. Like, like, go get help, man. Like, your life is way more important." But then Peter goes into this trope of, like, of why, like, some superheroes just want a secret identity, which is just because he wants his, like, to have a bit of a break from, say, his job that doesn't pay him. But also, there's also a different reason, which is also the fact that Aunt May has a weak heart, and like before, like James DeMatteis like came in, revealed that Aunt May knew that Peter was Spider-Man. More or less, like Aunt May was just portrayed as this weak, old, frail woman who just, if she ever learned the truth, she would basically have a heart attack. So, like, that's the reason why Aunt May, for literal decades, didn't find out that Peter was Spider-Man. And I mean, with how many times, like, she ended up in the hospital, especially in the first run, from what I've seen, yeah, that's kind of valid. But anyway, after that, like after he explains like why he's not gonna go get help and why he has to do this alone, but like MJ's like, okay, but like, you need to get some help with this. And Peter's like, okay, how do I do that? And so he goes around swinging and goes to a therapist to just like ask him, saying, hey, I kind of need help. And basically, what the therapist says is that clearly the symbiote has a love-hate relationship with him. He loves him, but if the thing object has something that makes you hate it, like you're gonna have like a hatred for it, but you still deep down love it. Like take your girlfriend, like you have all this like fun, like all these great date moments, you make love to her or whatever, but then the girlfriend basically like and you like reveal secrets to her, but then she publicly humiliates you with that secret, and now you hate her. Like all your love moments are poison, but deep down you still like love those moments, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Anyway, Peter shows up to this meeting spot and Venom begins cheap shotting him. And Peter tries to fight back. He tries to use other weaknesses that he knows of the symbiote. It doesn't work. And eventually Venom just starts. And clearly Venom is on top of this fight and nearly drowns him, but then Peter escapes and realizes, okay, I'm going to need to try something different. And if you've seen this Spectacular Spider-Man, like, first Venom episode, you know exactly what he's trying to do. He's basically like, okay, symbiote, I'm done. You can have me now. I'm ready to bond, like, in lovely matrimony with you. and, and he's like, you think the suit's gonna leave you for when I am its clearly better host? And Peter's like, I, not not we. And the symbiote is clearly a bit conflicted because deep down it still wants to be with Peter. It doesn't want to be with Eddie. And again, to reiterate, like the symbiote isn't feeding off negative emotions like it does in most of the adaptations. It just is alive, and that's the thing. It's a much more complex idea of who the suit is, because the suit has its own wants and desires separate from Eddie. Like very much separate from Eddie Brock. So Eddie thinks he is the ideal host. The suit still kind of wants Peter, so it tries to leave Eddie and go to Peter, but there's a little snag which a lot of the other adaptations don't really highlight, is the fact that the suit was actually, like, when the church scene happened, the suit was actually trying to permanently bond with Spider-Man. So even if Spider-Man wanted to permanently bond with it, but then didn't want to afterwards, it couldn't leave the suit. He couldn't leave the suit even if he wanted to. And currently, the suit can't leave Eddie even though it wants to. And the and the strain from trying to leave Eddie for Peter knocks pretty much everyone else out. But Peter escapes because the suit is now permanently bonded with Eddie and it can't exactly leave him. So I guess this is the real start or hint of the toxic love between the suit and Eddie Brock. I mean, it was already a toxic love because they're pretty much feeding off their hatred of Spider-Man. But this is especially toxic because, well, now Eddie knows that it's not the ideal host he thought he was for the suit. But anyway, Peter leaves to go call the Fantastic Four to go pick up Eddie, and that's the end of the issue. All right, this is the Trial of Venom. I think I guess in this entire collection, it's probably the one that is the most filler. Because I mean, the first one was his first appearance. Then, like, the next two were his, like, then the next two were like a pretty big showing a bit more depth to Venom. And this one, it just kind of feels like more of the same. So pretty much in the vault, we get like a sense of how the vault works since I guess, a past breakout, and how the vaults improve their security. But then they hear Eddie Brock screaming because seemingly the symbiote is dead, and they try and get Eddie away from it. And to Eddie's account, the suit pretty much committed suicide because it couldn't have Spider-Man and decided, fuck it, I don't want to be here anymore, and just killed itself. Wow. If only it did that, like, after Spider-Man rejected it the first time. But anyway, then Daredevil... Then apparently Matt Murdock is being the one to defend Venom in court. I mean, Eddie in court. Because technically, Venom isn't the symbiote and Eddie isn't Venom. With their powers combined, they become Venom. So now that the symbiote's gone, Eddie is pretty much able to be defended because, and Matt has a good case because, well, Eddie was kind of being manipulated by the thing, I guess. Anyway, he wants, Spider-Man to show up and be a witness to testify with Venom, being that he's pretty much the only superhero that has fought Venom, so he's the best case. He's the best person for the job. And of course, Spider-Man wants absolutely nothing to do with this, and he's like, fuck that. I ain't doing that shit. And then Daredevil pulls out the whole responsibility, and unlike saying in the Spider-Verse where Spider-Man basically said, don't even dare finish that sentence, I'm sick of it, Peter's like, fine, I'll defend him in court. So both Matt Murdock and Spider-Man head to the vault. And pretty much Matt doesn't really learn anything while talking to Eddie before the trial, except for the fact that he doesn't belong in the vault and he wants out. And from what Matt can hear, because, that's how Daredevil's powers work, he has super hearing, so he can hear a heartbeat and realize that the guy is lying. Can't hear a lie. He's like, okay, I'm convinced that this guy is able to help. This guy needs help. And so they head to the trial where Spider-Man, does a pretty bad job at... Pretty much starts to tell the jury, hey, this is what Venom did. Pretty much recapping the first story, I think. Because mainly in the flashback, he has like a Venom, the black suit on, so I guess this happened before. So I guess this happened like that. So pretty much, as the trial goes on, Matt tries to defend Eddie by pretty much pointing out the simple truth that, Eddie, yes, Eddie hates Spider-Man, but he didn't hate him, but he didn't try to go after him before the suit happened. Well, that's what Spider-Man tries to say. He's like, well, Eddie could have come after me, even without the suit. And Matt's like, dude, has J. Jonah Jameson tried to come after you? And he hates you more than anything. And I have to say, Spidey, did you completely forget all those times that J. Jonah has sent literal supervillains and robots after you? The Spider Slayer, Scorpion. Did you forget about those guys? And sure, JJ kind of very much learned his lesson from Scorpion, that this is a bad idea, because Scorpion has tried to kill J. Jonah Jameson a number of times. But still, did you forget about that guy? Did you forget about all those times? But anyway, Matt's point is pretty much that Eddie is more of a danger to himself without the suit, because all Eddie tried to do with all that bitterness and hate was, kill himself. I think this is the first story that really tried to really started to introduce the question of the relationship seemingly between Eddie and the suit, where the suit is really more of the problem for Eddie. Like, the suit feeds off his hate and for Spider-Man wants to keep using him, while Eddie's more of the unwitting pawn. Like, this is the first story that I think really introduced it. It doesn't really do much with it because, uh, because after everything, after like the big break, like Eddie tries to ask Spider-Man if he could ever forgive him, and Spider-Man doesn't really know how to respond to that, but he has a hunch and goes to talk to the director of the vault to have like a backup plan because Spider-Man wants to make sure of something. So because, well, Eddie was acquitted. He is not guilty due to insanity. And so, he's ready. He's ready to move to like Chicago and LA, start a new life, stay as far away from New York as possible. But Spidey's like, "Hey, Eddie, I'm not done. Buddy, you're nothing to me. You're pathetic. You're absolutely just scum, and I'm here to clean you out." You see what Spider-Man's doing? He's pretty much trying to goat Eddie into revealing the fact that he's Venom. And plot twist, he does, because Venom was inside of his body, making sure his heart rate was super low, so that he could fool all the light detectors. Because I don't think when Spider-Man had the black suit, like he knew Daredevil was Matt Murdock. He obviously knew it in this story, but still. So that's the reason why he was able to fool Daredevil, because literally the suit was like slowing down his heart rate, even though in reality it would have been like going at 1,000,000 miles an hour. But anyway, the suit, like Venom is back in action for some reason. He isn't saying "we" a whole lot. He's saying "I." So maybe it is Eddie to make the point Spider-Man more reasonable in his assumptions. But anyway, pretty much they start fighting, and like Venom's going on this whole judge thing. He's like, "Okay, I'm going to be judge, jury, and executioner, and I pled you guilty." But then Daredevil comes in, and like he gets taken out rather quickly. And Venom's like, "Oh," he injures his shoulder and everything. And then he's like, "You know what? I hate you just as much as Spider-Man because you remind me of him." Because Daredevil's also a wisecracker, if you didn't know. But then Spider-Man says he's feeling jealous and decides to tackle Eddie off a cliff, and then they go into a cave. And Spider-Man keeps luring him deeper into the cave. And Venom's like going on about how he's superior and that he will kill Spider-Man. Until eventually Spider-Man goats him into a trap, which is revealed that through holograms he managed to trick him back into his cell. And of course Venom isn't very much happy about this, and then we cut to like Daredevil and Spider-Man talking, pretty much explaining what Venom's plan was, which I just explained. And Matt pretty much telling Spider-Man, "Look, you may have been right that Venom was tricking all of us with this trial, but you also have to admit that I did make a good point. The suit is more of the problem than Eddie Brock." And Spider-Man gives a pretty reasonable answer with all he's been through with Venom. "What, you want me to feel bad for him?" And then Spider-Man kind of laments so that everything's just so much more complicated nowadays. And Matt Murdock's like, it was never not complicated, Spidey. It was never not complicated." And that's it for the trial of Venom. Again, probably the most filler one in this collection of the saga of Eddie Brock. But, it was fine. Oh yeah, it also probably has Venom for once actually looking like Venom. A more weird looking Venom, but still Venom. He has all the sharp teeth, all the big thing, and the ton! We finally got the ton, guys. We did it. Anyway, next time. Okay, so the next issue of this last installment in this saga. Somehow, Eddie Brock has broken out of prison. Apparently, in the last issue, probably in like the last issue, despite the fact that there was an entire other issue which had an unrelated B A plot where Venom and a B plot that where Venom escapes. But I guess it was just so innocuous that they didn't even feel like putting in a just a page to show how he broke out. But anyway, pretty much Venom, he starts going on about his usual motive. He's gonna get revenge on Spider-Man for ruining his life as Eddie Brock, the journalist, and also rejecting the suit. And the fact that they have such a toxic love, they want to kill him and stuff. But then it reveals a secondary plot point, and you might recognize it from the Amazing Spider-Man films, of his parents. Yep, in the comics, his parents came back to life for a bit. And I think it was also like I think it's not actually his real parents from what I remember. I mean, I haven't actually read this saga, but anyway, like they're like androids or clones or some shit that Harry Osborn did just to basically have one giant fu to Peter. Because despite popular belief, Harry has never been Hobgoblin. Okay, I just had to get that off my chest. So anyway, uh, so we cut to Peter, MJ, and Aunt May, and also his parents going to Central Park to ice skate. Well, not really Aunt May, but still. And he hasn't really told his parents that he's Spider-Man, and so he's very much trying to do it. And MJ's very much telling him, "Hey, relax, buddy. Like, come on." Like, they love you. You don't need to try so hard. But apparently it's running. Peters has appointments today, and he has to go quickly to the university for some classes. I guess he's back in college? I don't know. So he very quickly leaves, leaving MJ and like his parents and Aunt May to like go home. And apparently MJ smokes. I didn't know that. Anyway, then we see Peter at the Daily Bugle, where he's trying to get some work because he hasn't worked in a week as a photographer. But then one of the news people says, "Oh yeah, maybe we should get some shots of Venom." He's like, "That's stupid. Venom's in jail." And the guy's like, you do realize he like broke out, right?" And Peter pretty much goes into, "Okay, I need to get out of here. I need to go hunt him down." Because he knows Venom. He knows Venom knows who he is. And apparently it was also published news that, Peter's parents were alive. So Peter like uses his smart brain and goes, "Oh shit, he's gonna go after mom and dad. I need to go hunt them down first." Oh, wait. There's also like a side thing going on with Jay Jonah, I guess. Maybe it'll pop up later in like the parent saga. I don't know if it's going to appear in the next issue. But anyway, so Peter, so then like we see Aunt May going on a bus, and they're all in like Peter's parents and MJ are like planning to go somewhere, I guess. But then before they can leave, guess who shows up? Yep, it's your boy Eddie Brock. Basically here to say, "Hey, I know your son." And MJ is immediately freaking out because, well, she knows who the hell he is. But his parents are like, "Oh, are you a friend of Peter's?" It's like, "Oh, I wouldn't exactly say I'm a friend." But before he could do anything to his parents, MJ spots Peter in the sky and alerts him saying, "Hey, help, help." And then as soon as Eddie sees Spider-Man, apparently he goes like full bull mode and starts jumping at him. And then the fight begins. I also guess this is where like the Spectacular Spider-Man, uh, like Venom episode got the whole parade idea from. And so they begin fighting, and well, this is probably the most public battle they've ever had because there's just civilians all around, and like Peter gets thrown into the parade. Yeah, he gets thrown into like one of the parade like vehicles, and then he tries to go up into the balloons, but Venom immediately fucking like throws a thing at him. And then he gets thrown into like a store. He tries to lure Venom to like the roof, but while that's happening, um, because Venom was just like like moving so slow, he didn't actually notice where Peter went. So he's just like, "Hey, where the hell's Spider-Man?" Like he's talking to like a store clown and a little kid, and well, he's acting. Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention that this is where the Venom line from the first movie of like Island's Pancreas games from. Like very much like this is a direct quote from this issue. So that's cool. Anyway, back to what I was talking about. So he tries to act like friendly towards a kid, which is kind of hard because this is the first time that Venom has actually looked like Venom. Because look at him, look at him. That's Venom right there, not just evil buff Spider-Man with a smile. Like that. That is Venom. But anyway, he tries to act friendly towards the kid, which is kind of hard because of just look at him. And so the store clown tries to defend the little girl, but he punches this clown out, and he tries to like say, "Oh, did the clown scare you?" Even though I'm pretty sure you're the scary one here, Venom. Then Peter realizes that Venom isn't following him, so he goes back and then goes into round two, baby. And Venom just starts beating living crap out of Spider-Man enough to knock him out because Venom has different plans for today. And as soon as Spider-Man wakes up and goes after where he thinks Venom went, because the bystander wakes Spider-Man up and he's like, "Hey, he said like hurting you more," and Peter realizes, "Oh crap, Mom and Dad." So he automatically rushes to where MJ is, but then she reveals that his parents have been taken by Venom, and that's the end of the issue. Alright, here's the final issue of the Saga of Eddie Brock. And this is also, I think, the final time he was like a Eddie Brock Venom was a flat out villain. Because this is the story that leads into Venom Lethal Protector. Because Venom became so popular that everyone kind of wanted an original story just for him. But anyway, opens up with Venom with, Peter's parents. Richard and Mary Parker, if you care. And Eddie's like, "Don't worry, I won't kill you. I'll protect you from the wall crawler." And and Peter's parents are just like, "We have nothing to do with Spider-Man. Why do you care about this?" And Eddie's like, "Wait, you mean he didn't? You mean he didn't tell you? Tell you? No, 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 no. I won't tell you because you're innocent, and I defend the innocent." Because like what Eddie's plan is here is to keep Peter's parents away from him, because in Eddie's insane mind currently, like Spider-Man is the root of all evil. Like like imagine like a shitty neighbor. Like you just permanently think he's a bad person. You think, but then you start to see other things where you're like, okay, maybe they're not exactly a bad person. That's basically what Eddie is. He's currently in the this guy's an asshole. This guy's a pure asshole. There's nothing redeemable about him. Okay, so anyway, Peter is currently on the hunt for Venom, but he has no clue where Venom could be because, well, Venom's nowhere to be found, and he's not using his usual method of, just swinging around getting Spider-Man's attention, because this time he's directly going after his loved ones and not and not just him. So Peter goes to the Daily Bugle to try and look up anything on Eddie Brock, while we get an update to that whole what J. Jonah was doing in the last issue. So apparently he's calling Silver Sable because he hired the Wild Pack. It's revealed later on, but he hired the Wild Pack to go after Venom for like an exclusive interview. You know, just typical Jonah stuff. But anyway, Peter learned about someone named Anne Wang, and if you recognize that name, that's the name of Eddie's ex-fiance from the films. But instead of being a doctor, I think she's more of like a lawyer or something. But she doesn't really want to see anything because, well, she's Eddie Brock's ex-wife. So, and she kind of became famous because Eddie Brock was publicly known as Venom. So anyway, like she refuses to see Peter Parker, but Spider-Man shows up because, well, he really needs to talk to her to learn anything about Venom, and he's desperate. Oh yeah, this is also I think the longest I've seen like comic book Spider-Man with like actual battle damage. And heck, I'll take that over the mask battle damage any day. So Annie pretty much tells Eddie's story from her side, which is revealing a bit more about his personal problems, like his problems with his dad, like their relationship, like how Annie saw a side of Eddie that no one else really did, and well, showing that like like his like before this, it was more like, wow, you're really gonna kill someone over your career being dead? And you're like, you get why. I mean, like, you don't want to do work you're not passionate about. But then, like, with a little detail that Eddie's dad legitimately, like, even before, like, Venom happened, like, even before the Sinister incident happened, legitimately his dad didn't like him, and, like, they had, like, this big gap between their affection for each other. And after the Sinister thing, it basically like eroded any chance of a relationship they could ever have, and that kind of drove Venom insane, like Eddie insane. So he's like, okay, I can kind of see why Eddie really hates Peter right now. But Anne mentioned this place called the like an abandoned amusement park called like Fairpoint or something, and so Peter hears that and is like, okay, that's definitely where he's brought my parents. So he very quickly heads to the amusement park. But and Eddie like so Spider-Man heads quickly to the amusement park, but Anne kind of realizes, okay, maybe I didn't do enough to help Eddie out. Maybe I didn't do enough to like help him get out of this whole idea of like vengeance on Spider-Man thing. You know, it's a pretty human reaction of realizing, okay, maybe I was kind of not that good of a partner to him. Or maybe Eddie was just insane. I don't know. But anyway, when she's leaving, we see the Wild Pack ready to like follow her to hunt Venom down because I guess it's just public knowledge. So how the hell did like Spider-Man or hell like Matt Murdock not mention Annie at all in the past issues? But whatever. So Spider-Man shows up at the amusement park and Venom senses him and heads out. And while this is happening, Richard starts to like cut through the webbing with a piece of glass. And so Venom shows up, and Spider-Man's like, okay, dude, all right, I'm ready to fight. And Venom's like, because you took my parents, I'm not going to let you hurt them. And Venom's like, I'm not going to hurt them. I'm going to protect them from you. And in Venom's logic, they were saved from being around, like, they were saved from his corrupting influence by actually being locked in a Russian prison. That's where they've been for the past 20 years, according to this comic's logic. Again, like again, it was a plan by Harry Osborn as one giant fu to Peter. So while before they start, you know, all brawling, Annie shows up and pretty much tries to convince Eddie, saying, "Hey, look, 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 Eddie, I know you. You're not a bad person. Just let those people you kidnapped go, and like, you can be a better person. You can do good." And before Venom really has time to actually consider this, the Wild Pack shows up, and in Venom's logic, he's like, Spider-Man did this. I must get my revenge. And he starts beating the crap out of Spider-Man while these people are attacking him. And then Spider-Man's like walks up to one of them and is like, "Dude, what the hell are you people doing here?" And then it's revealed about the whole J. Jonah hired them, and even hired another like a photographer to like, you know, take pictures. And Peter's like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Can this day get any worse?" And so Eddie's fighting off the Wild Pack, but then he knows it. But then and then Peter's parents walk out because they escaped, and then get trapped by a bunch of fire. And Eddie, in his first, I guess, act of heroism, I guess, saves them from the fire and tells Annie to go get them to safety. And then he starts fighting off the Wild Pack again. But then he notices Spider-Man. Well, and then Spider-Man's like, okay, I can't deal with the Wild Pack, but I have to deal with Venom. Where is he? And then Venom starts beating the crap out of him again. While also, now he's being attacked by another Wild Pack member. And then Annie knocks him out. And Eddie's like, "Oh, thanks, babe. Now it's time for the kill." And Annie basically starts trying to talk some sense into Eddie. He's like, "Dude, I just saved you. And you're going to use that opportunity to kill someone else? Look, Eddie, get your head on straight." But then during his fight with Spider-Man, during all of this commotion, like the Ferris wheel starts to like get damaged enough to actually start falling, and it nearly falls on Annie. But then Venom, in a weakened state, mind you, holds it up, and is barely holding on because, well, the Venom symbiote is like weakened because of all the sound from the Wild Pack. But then Spider-Man shows up and like helps Venom like legitimately push the Ferris wheel to the other side. But then Venom tries to go in for, like to fight Spider-Man again. But then he's like, "Hey, Eddie, look what just happened. Look what Spider-Man just did. He saved the innocent." And pretty much uses Venom's logic against him. It's like, wait, if Spider-Man saves the innocent, then if I kill him, he can't save more innocents in the future. Huh. And so with that logic, Venom is just like, okay, let's make a deal, Spider-Man. You don't come after us, and we won't come after you. Deal? And Spider-Man, very reluctantly, is like, okay. Then Venom leaps onto a helicopter to escape the Wild Pack and Spider-Man. Like, Spider-Man tries to throw a Spider Tracer at him, but then the symbiote noticed. Like, "Peter, I think the last time that you tried this, it didn't work. Why do you think this time it would?" And, Peter's, like, in the moody of moods. He's like, "Am I really okay with letting a monster go like this? One that knows who I am?" And then we cut to, like, the final bit where we get check up on, like, Peter's parents and stuff. Oh, yeah, like, Annie got, like, the photographer that Jonah hired to take his parents away as she went back to go help Eddie. And Annie didn't go with Eddie, by the way. I just wanted to let you know. Anyway, uh, like, Peter and MJ start talking, and and he tells MJ that he let Venom go. And of course, Mary Jane is very much worried about this, but and like Peter, and both of them are very much worried about this, and this is what leads to Venom Lethal Protector. Oh yeah, they're also in a condo again. Anyway, that was some good Venom. And we saw like the early appearances of Venom slowly morph into the Venom we know. How great for the world. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Bye.